Welcome to Attunement with Courtney O'Keefe. I am your host, Courtney, and today we are doing a business background for the sacral chakra. We have Marissa Heeter on. Marissa is a sacred sexuality and embodiment mentor who has lived in devotion to a sacred sexuality path for over 8 years. Certified in sexological bodywork and somatic sex education through the Institute of Somatic Sexology, a trauma-informed and neuroscience-based certification, she integrates a deep understanding of the body-mind connection into her work. Marissa is devoted to sensual beauty and brings this spirit in all aspects of life. One of her soul's deepest purposes is to unite women in sisterhood and amplify their unique gifts. Rooted in the wisdom of the Rose Lineage and Tantra, she has guided women in embodying the sacred feminine path. She is a certified Cacao Facilitator through One World Cacao and gives gratitude to the indigenous elders and plant medicine who have aided her journey. Outside of her work, Marissa enjoys ceremonies with her husband, immersing herself in music, dancing, practicing yoga, and staying active through exercise. She's an avid reader and writer of romance and fantasy, and she loves to spend time with her cute kitties. We are so excited. Marissa, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
We are going to dive really deep, and I cannot wait to get into it. Before we get started, can you tell the audience a little bit about your life and upbringing as a child and the foundation of who you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question because I think that it really impacts the work that I've gone into and how I've gotten to this place. So, I essentially had two opposite childhoods at the exact same time. My parents divorced when I was 7, and I would go with my dad a couple days a week and every other weekend, and I was with my mom about 3 days a week and every other weekend. So, almost exactly 50-50.
Wow.
And my mom was very unstable. She kind of got lost in prescription pill addiction. My oldest brothers were selling drugs. There was a lot of neglect, and my siblings and I just kind of took care of each other. Definitely some themes of, like chaos, just in general, like heat chaos. Lots of experiences with being around people who had just overdosed and, being in that void of life and death and holding that.
At such a young age.
Such a young age, yeah. It was like very much like 8 to 13 was that
Wow.
really pinnacle time of that chaotic journey. And then at the exact same time, like during all of it, I would go to my dad's house where my dad was very religious. He's an attorney. Him and my stepmom were very stable, like
Mm.
lots of rules. So one house had quite literally no rules. I
Wow.
could do whatever I wanted. I would be hanging out with my older siblings while they were doing drugs and drinking and all of that. And then I would go to my dad's house, and girls had to wear skirts on Sundays. We went to church like all the time. And so, in a way, I had this really beautiful experience of fun being peak toxic feminine and the
Mm-hmm.
chaos of when the feminine is not being channeled correctly and the shadows of the feminine. And in the other, I got to experience the shadows of the masculine and the
Wow.
like peak control and peak experience of that. And simultaneously, there was light in both. There were parts of my mom's house that my bond with my siblings today wouldn't be the way that it is had we not had that experience. And there were certain elements of like freedom, and especially in the summertime where I just kind of did whatever I wanted and played in nature,
Yeah.
that was really beautiful at the same time. Yeah, that's a little bit about how I got here.
Yeah.
Both of them did have kind of religious tones. One was just like not living the life, and the other was. And so I also kind of made this assumption pretty young that kind of created a lot of shame of if I'm not living a Christian life, then my life will fall apart, because that was the evidence that was sort of presented to me.
Mm.
So when I was around 13, I ended up choosing to go live with my dad, mostly because things just weren't safe. And my older
Yeah.
siblings were graduating high school. And so I chose to start my high school like at 14, living with my dad, and just was like, you know what? I'll just deal with the rules because the electricity is paid.
Yeah.
and like my meals are provided for me. And so I kind of learned then how to find safety in the masculine, which is what I think a lot of people seek when they go into more traditional. I don't mean patriarchal in a negative sense, but just patriarchal as in the energy of the masculine faiths.
You've had like a total yin yang experience.
Yeah, this is why I work a lot with polarity now and why I'm so passionate about us coming to sacred union within and
Mm.
really having like a healthy masculine and healthy feminine in our landscape.
That's beautiful. I love that so much. And could you share with us a little bit how you got into the work that you do?
Absolutely. So, originally, I got really into energy healing and Reiki. I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening when I was 19. And that's quite a long story, but essentially, I was on a mission trip. I visited this piece of land where there was a waterfall. And as I was walking down it, I kind of had like symbols starting to glow on the trees. I felt a lot of energy, but I didn't have any language or context for that at that time to even use that word.
Yeah.
And, whether it was a spiritual awakening or a Kundalini awakening or whatever language people want to use, it was a very big spiritual awakening journey. And as I walked down, I remember just sliding down the base of the tree. And more memories of this, like understandings of this have taken shape over the years. But I remember, like, as soon as my tailbone hit the root, just
Wow.
all of this energy flooding up my system and kind of just like a huge awareness. And I just kind of felt all of the brainwashing that I had grown up in kind of wash away. And I thought I passed out. Like I thought I like was fainting or lightheaded or dehydrated because I didn't have any like context. Whereas like, if we grow up in yoga and we start, we've been practicing yoga for 15 years or something, and then we have an awakening. We're like, this makes sense because I've been studying, I've been in this discipline. So after that, I remember I became very interested in spirituality and just what is the spirit. And I was very much on a journey and on a quest. And I think I was even before that awakening happened. And so I would say maybe a year or two after that, I'd been experimenting with psychedelics. And I remember like I kind of like saw a spirit and I was like, oh, I used to see these as a child. I used to like
Wow.
see this, the other world kind of thing. And so I went to a Reiki practitioner for the advice of a friend of mine, and her name was Melody, and she became the first person who kind of taught me about psychic states. And so my journey on how I came into my work is that all of my upper chakras were completely blown open.
Mm.
I could, walk in between dimensions and talk to trees and have all of this upper chakra experience. However, none of it was really rooted. And it kind of got me in trouble in a way. Just in that
Really?
I didn't understand the energies that I was being exposed to. I didn't understand what was serving me and what was not serving me. I didn't
Wow.
have like a solid context of boundaries at all because
Mm-hmm.
all of my lower chakras were blocked. So I didn't even know what yes and no felt like in my body, let
Wow.
alone how to apply that to the spirit world.
Yeah.
So I kind of just experimented with, all the different spiritual realms. And then also I was partying and going to college for teaching and, just all the things that you do at 21, 22. I
Yeah.
moved to Boston and I was at a psychedelic storytelling experience and I met my mentor, Nikki. And she was sharing her journey on healing from sexual trauma through ayahuasca and embodiment. And I just remember my whole body having chills and being like, I don't know who this woman is. I don't know what she offers. And at that time, I just thought if you didn't offer therapy, you offered Reiki. It was the only two things that existed in my young consciousness in comparison to now, where I realize that there's a blend of what we offer in the world.
Yeah.
And so I went up to her and was like, what do you do? Like, what do you offer? How can I work with you? And so I started to talk with her, and she shared about conscious menstruation. And that was my pathway in. She was started to share about like how we have to bring all of the energy down into the body and how powerful the womb is and how powerful our sacral chakra is. And so that's what awakened me to stepping into womb work in my own journey. And it was the most perfect match because I was on my period at that time that I met her. I had probably taken 14 ibuprofen that day because I had excruciating periods. And up until that point in my life, I was dead set on getting a hysterectomy as soon as I had children or as soon as I chose not to. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, in my 30s, I'm getting this out. I'm done. And that's totally a beautiful choice for women when they have to do that. But at the time, that was just the only option that I could think of. So that led me into doing really deep womb healing and realizing that the pain behind the pain were so many of my gifts. And behind the pain was, trauma that was not just mine, but also mine from
Mm-hmm.
childhood. And also all of the women who never got to feel in my lineage, I was the one feeling for them. And
Wow.
so I really started to get deep into embodiment and to learn how to just focus on how my body felt, how it felt to be in my body. And my period became like a monthly almost lab test of
Yeah.
where my physical health was.
Wow.
And so that was the intro to where I am.
That's a beautiful story. And I love that you touched on like ancestral healing for the womb space. When I thought of this sacral business episode, I really wanted someone to come on with womb healing experience. I didn't know that anyone in the area did this. And I found you on Google and then looked up your Instagram, and your Instagram is so beautiful. You share so many raw things on there. And I'm so glad I found you. And I hope people can find healing in your story. And I can't wait to dive into your business as well. Do you feel like you're still working on your womb space?
Not in the same way that it used to be,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Like, I would say that part of womb healing has become like a lifestyle change.
Okay.
So there has been, in the same way that like, I was just very disassociated before. So my lifestyle just didn't even include many aspects of my health that I include now. But when
Mm-hmm.
I first began womb healing, I needed to do a lot of womb clearing and I
Ooh,
needed to do
okay.
a lot of somatic and physical practices. So energy clearing, energy work, womb sounding, learning how to just sound with my womb and connecting it up to my throat and
Yeah.
creating a channel up and down, and yoni steaming. And so
Mm,
actually like bringing herbs into the yoni to help balance hormones. And so it became a journey of at first it was the energetic, then it was the emotional, and then it was the physical, and kind of moving through all of these different layers of consciousness to bring whole healing.
yeah.
And now I still yoni steam twice a month because it's such a sacred practice to me. I womb massage because it feels good for my body.
Mm-hmm.
So if I skip it, I typically don't have periods the way I used to have them. Um,
Interesting.
but there are these practices and these rituals that have come in through womb healing that have become such a staple in my relationship to self-care
Mm,
and such a staple in the way that I just live my life. And I think so much of, for my personal journey, and this may not be true for everyone because we all have different ways of relating to womb healing and what's going on with the womb. My personal journey was that I was just really disassociated from my body. As
yeah.
I started to come into womb healing, I started to ground and to realize, oh, I need to eat differently. Like the foods I'm eating are not making me feel good.
Yeah.
Um, and the journey with that and the ever evolving process as we listen to our body and how our body has new needs over time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been times in my life when I needed to eat like really clean or very Ayurvedic to kind of support my womb. And then
Yeah.
recently, after like 12 years of being vegetarian, I started adding fish and meat. Well, I think I added fish a couple years ago, but added fish a couple years ago. And then recently added meat back into my diet, just like regeneratively farmed, organic, wild hunted, really high quality meat
Yeah.
back in.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's interesting like hearing your story with menstruation because I grew up going to a Catholic school and they automatically like hand you birth control pills for acne stuff, acne issues. And I had gone through something with that. And my parents were like, no, you're never taking birth control. And my periods were so bad. And they gave me codeine instead of Yeah, and I had to like take codeine for my periods and couldn't go to school like 4 days in a row during my cycle. And that only lasted like 2 months because my parents were like, this isn't sustainable. But how wild is that? Looking back on that.
That is absolutely insane. I cannot believe that they gave you.
I know. I actually can't even believe it either. So crazy.
Yeah. And there's so much more awareness that we could have and that can have, like that we can have. And I'm someone who I'm not anti-birth control because I think that there's a time and a place when women need that and women need to go on their
Hmm.
own journey and have
Yes.
informed consent
Mm,
about what they need, and if that's the right choice for them. And birth control has so many side effects.
yeah.
There's so many repercussions with birth control and ways that we are taking our body out of the natural rhythm. And when we really learn to live with our cycle and live with this cyclical alchemy, we get to understand when we're ovulating. So, like, I
Mm,
am so in tune with my ovulation at this point that I can feel when the egg drops inside of my
yeah.
body because I've been able to like really tune in. And so when we start to track our cycles, and if we were teaching little girls this from the time that they start their period, they were taught how to track their cycle, how to have consent with their body. Like I remember no one ever taught me to even have consent with my body. So I just like shoved a tampon in the very first time I had
Yeah.
my period, there was no like, oh, I'm putting something in me. Maybe I should take a moment and see if my body is on board with this.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
I love when you put it that way.
yeah. And we have so many more products nowadays for young girls, like period underwear and all of these great things that are much more empowering and
Hmm.
comfortable for their day to day and eases that transition a bit.
Yeah.
But I remember we just didn't have that as young girls. And even still today, it's like, oh, your daughter, 15, 16-year-old has acne or she's sexually active. And there is a time and a place when it's like, if a girl is very sexually active or a woman is very sexually active, and, is not tracking and is not
Yeah.
working with awareness because there is always a chance of pregnancy no matter what,
Hmm. Hmm.
that would be the time.
Yeah.
Birth
Yes.
control may be for someone, but it's a personal journey and someone should be informed and aware of this is
Absolutely.
all the possible side effects and all the possible things for the next like handful of years because of how much
Yeah.
it shifts the hormonal body.
My gosh, yeah. I wish there was more information around that. But I would love to get into your business. Could you share with us what you do as a business and how it's structured so that people can learn about this? Because this is a more sensitive subject. Not a lot of people talk about this sacral sexual energy. And I think it's so important. So if you could tell us about what you do and who you work with, I would love to share that with everyone.
Absolutely. Um, I'm a sacred sexuality mentor, so I work with sacred sexuality. I'm certified in sexological bodywork through the Institute of Somatic Sexology, which is a trauma-informed program designed to teach somatic sex education.
Mm,
And so between my background and my lineage of working in sacred feminine mysteries and learning through priestess temple arts, which is essentially the feminine type of, it's very similar to neo-tantric practices or sacred sexuality practices.
mm,
And so I weave that into with the trauma-informed somatic sex education.
okay.
And I work with clients on so many different things. I usually work in one on one mentorship containers. So, because of the intimacy and the delicacy of this type of work, whether I'm working on with a woman on conscious menstruation and learning how to feel into the womb and we're just working with the cycle, or whether I'm working with someone on reattuning to joy and just
Mm,
feeling the feminine energy and we're working much more in the spiritual and the energetic realms, or we are working with healing from sexual trauma and reclaiming bliss as our birthright and reclaiming pleasure as a possibility and working with a lot of body image. Like, I really support women and loving their body and loving how it feels to be in their body and knowing how it feels to be in their body. And so I offer a monthly red tent where women can come and we can really kind of attuned to the frequency of the womb and understanding in that. And I offer one-on-one mentorship, which is about 3 to 4 months, usually about 4 months when we have some integration sessions. And the commitment to that is so important because we can't, especially when we're working with the womb and with cyclical alchemy, we need months of data to really be understanding what practices are really working, what ones are less so. And same for anything with sacred sexuality, because as women, we have all experienced some type of macro or even just minor traumas around sexuality, whether it was through repression or through feeling violated or feeling harassed. So we really, the intimacy and the depth of safety is so important. Like I have to hold a really safe container and be really deep in my integrity for this work to flow.
Mm.
And then I offer somatic immersions, which are essentially a like 4 hour session that are in person, and it'll include different types of breath, sound, perhaps hands-on body work, perhaps a ritual bath instead. And the ritual baths are really only open to clients that I've worked with prior, but the somatic immersions is someone who wants to take one specific topic and they want to go deep in that one thing. So, for example, if someone is just coming out of a relationship and they want to have a really consistent, powerful tool set of self care and self intimacy, the somatic immersion is almost like a ceremony to begin that. And then they'll leave with a daily practice as well as a weekly luscious practice.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Sometimes people will book a somatic immersion to learn yoni steaming in a really deep way and all the herbs that they may need. So, that's my individual sessions and my containers.
I love that. Could you give us an example of like what it looks and feels like to work with you?
Yeah. So what it looks like is weekly sessions.
Yeah.
There's one integration session after every 3 weeks we integrate and take a break. And the purpose of that is so that people can actually feel what it's like to be doing the work without me there.
Mm.
What it feels like is consistent support. I text with my clients almost every couple days, if not every day, depending on what they're going through. I send voice memos back and forth. They may leave a session, be doing a practice 3 days later if something really big is coming up, and I'm there to help them integrate into ground.
Mm.
In this session, it could be, one of my clients, I'll just share a little bit about this because she shared a testimonial, but she was really working on breaking free of shame and having a lot of shame in her life and in her body. And so one of the things we worked with was an undressing ritual. And we did this same ritual 2 different sessions. And on the first session, I would face away from her
Yeah.
and she would just play with like taking off bracelets and then feeling what it felt like. And I'd be guiding the process, like feel into it. It's very slow.
Mm-hmm.
Notice what it feels like without these bracelets that you always wear, or your wedding ring, or something that we almost always have on us.
Yeah.
And feeling into where is that boundary of vulnerability and where is the boundary of empowerment. And then if she could invite me to gaze at her. And so I would turn around and then I would ask her, where would you like my gaze? Would you like me to gaze at your hands? Would you like me to gaze at your eyes? Would you like me to gaze beyond you, but just have the front of my body facing you? And somatically, she would start to feel into, okay, what does it feel like in your body to have me face away? What does it feel like now to invite my gaze? I don't even know if she ever got fully undressed. We would just go through like different layers and feeling into that boundary and like allowing it to be a way for her to break free of shame and feel comfortable in her body. So that was a really powerful breakthrough. She also had a lot of shame around her stomach. And so we would do different like somatic self mapping where I would guide her to like basically body scan, but with touch. And so she'd be doing different self touch, and I'd be facing away if she wanted or having my eyes closed. I could even be on the other side of a room divider. And so she came into her stomach and she was looking at her stomach and she was like, I hate the way it looks. I feel disgust. I feel shame. And so I was like, okay, let's close the eyes. She had a practice of coming into her safe space when her eyes were closed. I was like, move your hands somewhere that feels supportive. Really breathe in and connect to that safe space again. So we return to safety every time because we can only
Mhm.
grow if we first feel safe. The safety has to be in peace so that we can move beyond our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And so when we return back to safety, I invite her, to go. I was like, if you feel supported, you can return, try different types of touch on your stomach. But instead of feeling what the stomach feels like, what if your hands, like, what are your hands noticing? What are your hands absorbing touch from?
Hmm.
So instead of the stomach feels the touch of my hands, the hands are noticing the textures on the stomach. And so when she did that, she started at one point laughing because her eyes were shut. She couldn't see her stomach. She wasn't paying attention. She was so lost in this meditation. And she wasn't paying attention to how her stomach looked, didn't care anymore. She's just noticing so slowly, like how little kids play with different textures, just somatically.
Mhm.
And she said, she's like, she noticed the different texture of her stretch marks. And she said, I love the softness of the skin. Like when I'm just allowing my fingers to touch it, I love the way it feels. Like it actually feels really fun to play with. It feels really fun to run my hands on. And so she started laughing because she was like, oh, it's so funny. She's like, but then when I open my eyes, I still kind of feel that old story. And I'm like, but the new story is that you love how your stomach feels because that's what you just proclaimed. So we
Mhm.
begin to rewrite stories around the body through the felt experience of our hands.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful and so cool. And thank you so much for describing that because it gives people a better visual. Because as someone who is very quote unquote spiritual and likes to think that I know all of these things, the sacral space is a very uncomfortable one with the sexual trauma that I've experienced. And this is something that I'm trying to do more of. Sensual touch was like one of the first, like my gateway into womb healing. And the way you just described that was so beautiful. And I'm going to like practice that next time.
Yeah. And we can practice it on all sorts of different areas of our body. And sometimes we don't come to like loving a part of our body, but we just come to neutrality and to acceptance and to like, "Oh, I appreciate that this knee is holding my leg in place."
Yeah, seriously.
And so we can really, the first step is always just coming to a place of neutral, and then it starts
Mm.
to evolve and starts to grow from there. And so that's just one thing I've worked with. Some of my clients have come to me with a lot of grief and feeling like if they let themselves feel happy that the bottom's going to drop. And so we really work on nervous system re-regulation to allowing them to feel safety and joy and allowing them to actually hold grief and pleasure together, and for pleasure practices to become a balm to the grief. So we're not bypassing the grief. We're not trying to like override it, but we're allowing all of it to exist, the shadow and the light to really dance and become one.
Oh, I love that. It sounds like you create like a really safe space that is very magical. And I love that you're not saying I heal these things. You're like providing a space for people to heal themselves, is what it feels like.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you will see soon, my business name is actually rebranding from Marissa Lynn Healing.
No way.
Yes, it's really exciting. I'll have a new website up as well. It's on the way. Just had the photos done.
Oh my
But
gosh.
so that's the big
Congratulations.
news. But the reason for that I'm kind of moving away from the word healing is I originally had it as Marissa Lynn is like a healing space.
Mm.
And I'm kind of just letting go of healing in general in the title because I want people to come in and to realize that they are doing their self healing. I'm providing a space, I'm providing the tools, and I'm being a sacred mirror of holding, reflecting the versions of themselves as who they are becoming and who they already are. They get to be awakened through this work when we have this sacred practice.
Oh my gosh. I love that. That is so beautiful. And then it's interesting because when we had chatted before, we had talked about like human design a little bit. Do you ever look into those items for your clients?
I do a little bit. Yeah, I usually do it just to kind of know them a little more.
Mm-hmm.
So I love to look at my clients' birth charts and human design charts. It really gives me even just like, I'm not an expert in human design, but if
Yeah.
I know someone has a sacral authority or they have an emotional authority, it's going
Mm.
to impact and shift the way that we work in container. Because if they have a sacral authority, listening to their sacral is everything. If they have an emotional authority, we're really working on knowing how to feel the feelings all the ways through until it becomes a new feeling and not getting stuck in a feeling loop. but using somatic practices to be like, oh, emotional authorities wake up and they just already have an emotion happening. My brother's one, he's a projector and he's an emotional authority. So when he
Mm,
wakes up, he already has this current of emotion happening internally. Whereas mine is actually an open space there. So I just kind of wake up the same all the time mostly.
yeah.
And once the external world or I'm in an environment, I'm like, oh, now I'm feeling something. And is this my feeling or their feeling? And I do still
Mm,
have my own emotions and my own feelings. It's just a different way of processing. Whereas my brother, that's like his biggest thing all the time. He has a dream and wakes up depressed about it. And so
yeah.
his journey is, okay, how do I move past this? How do I let this move through me and catch a new wave of emotion?
Mm.
So I do, yeah, I do use people's, and it depends on, one of my clients was really wanting to step into offering some of her own healing work. And so we were bringing in pleasure practice for manifestation. We were bringing in nervous system skills to support her as she expands into a new frequency. And with that, human design is really helpful, as well as just like astrology,
Mhm.
and just the basics, just like I get a little bit more information as to who they are and how they operate.
I love that. Do you ever do events
I do.
like
Yes.
locally?
Yes. So every month I have an in-person women's red tent. The red tent is where women used to bleed together. So for thousands of years, there were these tribal red tents. It's where all of the women in the tribe, because they all lived together, they would bleed at the same time and they would go into the red tent. Their crown chakras were the most open because when we're on our period, our crown chakra is actually like most expanded and our uterus is 10 times the size. So when we're menstruating, it's a really powerful time to be downloading information from the divine, getting all of our downloads and bringing them into the womb. So the red tent is this modern day version where we get to come together and we do different womb practices. We learn about conscious menstruation, perhaps do a womb massage. I kind of have a different theme every month, but every month is this beautiful red tent.
That's amazing. Do you do those in the city then?
Yes, so they are in Chicago. I also partner with women in the suburbs offering women's weekends retreats. I just offered one this past weekend. I do cacao ceremonies for all genders.
Amazing.
And I think on June 28th, I will be co-teaching a Tantra workshop.
Mm,
The location is to be decided. But
well, that's
yeah,
cool.
so I kind of just partner with people here and there. My friend Stephanie, who she has founded the company Trauma to Tantra, she and I held a sensual solstice event as well as an orgasmic birthing ritual event this past year. They were both just so divine.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Tantra is one thing I've always felt really called to, but I have not thoroughly researched it yet. But I have been very drawn to Mary Magdalene recently and like learning about like the Isis and sex magic and all of that. And I just picked up the Magdalene manuscript. Like, have you read it?
Yes, I love that book. My husband and I read it together, I would say maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
It's so powerful.
I'm like halfway through it and it's so amazing, like fascinating and incredible. I can't wait to finish it.
Yes, I'm so excited for you. There's so much in the tantra world because I feel like so often in Western society when we say the word tantra, we're really referring to a lot of neo-tantric practices.
Hmm.
And we're kind of just talking about the sexuality piece. Whereas other, the more stricter lineages of tantra, the sexuality piece is just a very small portion of it. And
Yeah.
it's much more about becoming the divine in life and understanding how our masculine and feminine energy and our ability to give and receive relate.
Hmm.
And then Mary Magdalene and Isis, they were essentially priestesses and different priestess temple arts. And so that is something that I have been very drawn to and very drawn to like passing that wisdom on to women as to how we heal each other. And I've had so many visions and so many dreams of being in Egypt and
Really?
yeah, it's one of my like favorite internal spiritual practices and drinking blue lotus tea, and allowing that to be kind of a gateway in. And one of the most beautiful things that I believe about Mary Magdalene is she is the embodiment of the feminine because the feminine is the mystery. And there is so many different stories around Mary Magdalene specifically,
Yeah.
and so many different versions of truth, even ones who say, like, she was a priestess, she was a tantra teacher, she lived in Egypt, she was married to Yeshua, they had children, they didn't have children, but they were married. There's all of these different elusive ideas. And
Yeah.
I think the beauty of that is the embodiment of the feminine. We are everything. We
Oh my
are
gosh,
this
I love that.
endless void of mystery. And so when we get to, I'm looking at the book right now. I was like looking at my book for it. When we get to embody that journey of becoming and allowing ourselves to move in the mystery and continuously evolve and have new parts of arise, we really get to embody those teachings of Mary Magdalene. And one of the things I work with my couples is having tantra as a practice or having sacred
Mm.
sexuality as a practice, because it completely up-levels marriage and changes marriage so much. Yeshua and Mary Magdalene are such inspirations for that, if people
Mhm.
resonate with that messaging.
Yes. I was just going to ask if you do couple stuff. Like, if when you're working with women, do they ask to bring their partner in so that you can teach the two of them?
Absolutely. And I actually work with men as well. I don't,
Okay.
it's not like my branding, I guess, but I do work with men as well on moving through and connecting more to their own sacred sexuality. And a lot of my clients that have been men, they're working on calling a partner in. And
Mm.
so they're working on learning how to love the feminine and honor the feminine. And they're wanting to work with different Kundalini practices or tantric practices to be able to channel their sexual energy instead of it kind of leaking everywhere in their life.
Yeah.
And with couples, it is so beautiful. I've had couples start a container with me together. I've had women where her and I do work together, and then she brings her partner in at the end. That's
Mm.
pretty common. I'm actually officiating the wedding of one of my couples in June,
No
who
way.
I did a 4-month container with her, and then she brought in her partner at the end for some sessions, and we get to, I get to officiate their wedding. So it's so beautiful.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. What would you like people to take away from this conversation?
I love this question. I would like people to take away from this conversation that they have everything they need within them. And that includes the intuition of knowing who to work with. That includes the intuition of listening to their body and trusting that when they're ready for the next level of information, or they're ready to go deeper in their healing journey, whether it's healing or whether they're just like, you know what, I really want to learn how to reach altered states through pleasure, no matter what the intention is, that they will find the right person for them at the exact right time. And they already have all the power within them, and they're worthy of receiving this type of work. They're worthy of living in bliss, and they're worthy of having a regulated nervous system that is attuned to the life that they're desiring to live in.
I love that. I love that. And if people feel called to work from you, like if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to work with Marissa, where can people find you?
You can find me on my Instagram, Marissa Lynn Healing. You can find my website, marissalynnhealing.com, and I offer free consultation calls. So reach out to me through either of those. My email should be on them, and I am more than happy to schedule a free consultation. I also have a Red Tent Facebook group, and I'm active on there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Marissa. And we are going to be looking out for your rebrand. That is so exciting. And I
Yay!
can't
Thank
wait
you
to
so
see the
much for
new
having
photos.
me. This was so wonderful, and I'm so excited about this podcast that you're doing and how you're really bringing such wonderful medicine into the world. It's such an honor to be a part of that journey with you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have to come to one of your events.
Yeah, I love it.
Visit ablealchemy.com to download your free chakra journal and to learn more about Able Alchemy. This is a place where your dreams and reality align through services like tarot and astrology readings, sound bath sessions, and intuitive branding for businesses looking to align with their manifestations and purpose through soul-led studies such as astrology, business energy analysis, and chakra color theory. Follow along with Able Alchemy on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Please rate, review, and subscribe if you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.